How's everyone doing this morning? Good. Great. How many of you have ever flown in an airplane? How many of you have actually been on the controls of an airplane? Anybody in here? You know what I mean? Been up front when they were flying a little small airplane? Anybody know about there's a flight academy up here. There was something on there. It's called West End Flight Academy.
West Michigan Aviation.
West Michigan Aviation. Okay. Well, I ask that question because I know if you've ever flown an airplane, you know it's kind of interesting. It takes a lot of coordination, doesn't it? And can you imagine flying an airplane and somebody shooting at you at the same time? Well, the person that I'm going to talk about today actually did that. Went to Europe and flew 63 combat missions. That's right, combat missions, where he's flying this airplane. You got to use your hands. Take this off. You got to use your hands, and you've got to use your feet to fly this thing. Can you imagine that? How many know what it's like to drive a car? Oh, how many of you got your driver's license? Okay, we all learned that early. Well, our guest speaker today actually learned how, or maybe still a little of his thunder, he actually learned how to fly before he got a driver's license. All right. Well,
yeah, you're right on both counts.
there you go. Today you're going to be introduced to aviation as it was back in early 1940s. You're going to learn what it was like to learn to fly. You're going to learn about his experiences. I'm talking about Lieutenant Colonel Ross. Now, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about his connection with me. We both went to the same school, same college. He went a few years before I did. But we have a connection because we were both with the Hampton Institute, University in Virginia. But we also have another connection too, because I too learned to fly. And I flew when I was in the military. I would not have had that opportunity had it not been for pioneers like Lieutenant Colonel Ross. So today, I welcome you to the experiences of Tuskegee Airmen, Lieutenant Colonel Ross.
Since you know my name now, I don't have to tell you who I am. I'm going to give you a little background of when I was, say, your age and younger and older. I was born in Mountain Bayou, Mississippi. It's a little black town about 40 miles south of Memphis, Tennessee. It's all black town. I grew up in Ashland, Kentucky. Now, Ashland, Kentucky, I guess if it had a Hall of Fame name, it was the headquarters for Ashland Oil. But seemingly, Ashland was in Boyd County, and Boyd County was dry. And I think they were losing people to come in, so they moved it to Lexington, Kentucky. It does not do retail sales. It does exploration and wholesale business. Of course, when I grew up in the South, the schools were segregated. I went to elementary school in Ashland. They did have a school, but they didn't even have a high school for blacks in Ashland, Kentucky. My parents sent me to high school in Ironton, Ohio, which was just across the river. I went to college, as Gregory mentioned, about a generation before he came, at Hampton Institute. It's Hampton Institute University now. Many people the question they asked me is, how did I become interested in aviation? Well, at Ashland, they did not have an airport. They still don't have one. And the planes came in, landed just in a field. And we lived about 2 blocks from the field. And my youngest brother and I, when planes would come in, we'd run over there and talk to the pilots. And we had to ask them questions, and they would answer them. You know, how does an airplane fly? And when you get in it and you're going somewhere, how do you know how to go? And if you're there or not, whatnot. They would answer our questions. So I told my parents if I got an opportunity to become a pilot, I was going to take it. And this did not happen until I went to Hampton. I graduated from high school in 1936, and that fall I went to Hampton, which is in Virginia, as mentioned. Now, during the latter part of the 30s and early part of the 40s, there was war in Europe. Hitler was, I mean, he was just really running over countries, and the airplane played a very important part in what he was doing. Well, he had his Air Force, which was called Luftwaffe, and his army was intact. But the United States was not in the war at that time. And by the way, if there's fighting someplace, war someplace, we're going to get in it. And you know, Congress, by the way, has to approve whether you get in it or not. And if you have an Air Force, you need pilots, of course. And if you're going to have fighter pilots, the airplanes have to have guns on it to shoot at the enemy. Well, in Washington, there was a general that was over the Army Air Corps by the name of Hap Arnold. And he made the statement, as long as he was the commanding general of the Army Air Corps, blacks would never fly for the United States. Well, with the influence of Eleanor Roosevelt, and I think you saw on the DVD there, Harry Truman, Senator Truman, he was a senator at the time, the black press, Chicago Defender, the Amsterdam News, and the Pittsburgh Courier, they put pressure on Congress to admit blacks to train. Well, they've said, well, we'll build this airfield in Tuskegee, Alabama, and they can't learn how to fly, so in about a year's time, we'll be through with this. I mean, we won't be bothered with it anymore. Well, they were in for a rude awakening. At Hampton, since they could not train pilots in the Army because we weren't at war yet, we didn't go to war until when? Can anybody tell me? I don't want the date. I mean, what happened that we went to war?
Hitler invaded the countries that, like, you guys were, allies with.
No, not exactly. Well, have you heard of Pearl Harbor? Yeah, Pearl Harbor. And that's when we went to war. Well, before that, Congress said, well, we'll train pilots in colleges and universities. And Hampton was one of the colleges that had the program. And about 50 of us went through the program, but 2 young ladies went through the program. And as Gregory mentioned, I had my pilot's license before I had my driver's license. That's when I got my first lesson in flying. Well, after we went to war, actually before we went to war in 1940, I got a card from the draft board. Do you have any idea what the draft board is? Sure.
No,
Oh, you talking about bulletin board, I think. Draft board, well, I'll go on because I don't think you acquainted with it. The draft board is this. You get a card from the draft board to sign up so they can put you in the service they want to put you in. Well, I got a card from them, and I was still at Hampton, and this was in 1940, and that fall I was going to be a senior, so I got deferred. They deferred me until I graduated. Well, I said, fine. I graduated, went back home to Ashland, Kentucky, and I don't think my parents even had a telephone. I said, they won't find me here in Ashland. It's a small town. I mean, about a week, I get another card. Report to your draft board, then sign up. Well, I said, I told my parents, I said, I have to leave here because they're on my case here. So I went to Washington, D.C. I had two brothers there, an uncle and an aunt. And I said, now surely they will not find me in the big city of Washington, D.C. Well, I was wrong again. It took them a little longer, 2 weeks, I got a card. Report to the draft board. Well, I didn't know what to do after that, but Hampton sent me a telegram, says, would I be interested in taking some further courses and teaching some? Be right there. I went down to Hampton, and I saw on the bulletin board that you could sign up for cadet training in Tuskegee, Alabama. So I took the examination, both the physical and the written, at Langley Field, and I'm not going to ask you, does anybody know what's at Langley Field, but we'll go on. The CIA, by the way, is at Langley Field. And when I walked in to take the written, all white, and they looked at me as though they were thinking, now what in the world is he doing coming in here? Well, I knew what they were thinking, and I took my seat. And you had to wait until the papers were graded. And when we went out for break and, get a Coke or whatever, and they did loosen up and we start talking. And they were talking about how hard the exam was. Did I think it was hard? I agreed with them. I said, yeah, oh yes, it was hard. I hope I passed it. And when I went back in, the papers were arranged from the highest to the lowest. Mine was on top, which was no surprise to me. I had just finished college. I had my degree. And if I couldn't have passed that test they gave, I just hadn't business in the program. Well, I was out a whole year before they called me. I worked in the Norfolk Navy Yard, which is in Portsmouth, Virginia. And I worked as actually it was just like a clerk in a store. We had supplies, mostly plumbing supplies for those ships. And then they called me to come down to Tuskegee for training. There were people from all over the United States, blacks from all over the United States were coming down to Tuskegee to get for training. The training was in 3 parts, and I'm not going to talk about basic because I didn't see any need for it, and I understand later on that they did cut it out. I'm going to talk about primary and advanced. Primary training was done by the Tuskegee Institute at the time. All the flight instructors were black. The ground instructors were black. The people that ran the program were black. In the training, we went to flight training half a day, and well, the class was split in half, but there were 42 in my class, 43I. Half would stay on the campus for ground training, and the other half would go take flight training. Then you switch, that half that didn't take flight would take ground, and vice versa. Now, you had to solo within 10 hours of training. And if you did not solo within 10 hours of training, you were what we call washed out of the program. And contrary to one of the films you saw, you went back home, but that wasn't true. In fact, I didn't know until I think after I had gotten out of the service in 1947, that once you passed that exam you took, you were in the Army. And I didn't know it until then. But so you went to somewhere else in the Army. My youngest brother washed out. By the way, what's the hardest part about flying? Any of you know? What's the hardest part? What do you think is the hardest part?
Hardest part is flying how to control air.
Well, you don't have yours together. What do you say? Well, one more and then. No, that's pretty good, but no, yes. No, it's just the opposite. Landing. Those small planes and whatnot take themselves off. Once it gets airspeed, it'll take itself off. But putting it back on the ground without tearing it up, that's the hardest part about flying. And my youngest brother couldn't land the plane. So my mother says, hallelujah, he didn't make it. I said, wait a minute, Mama. I mean, I made it. He said, oh, you take care of yourself. I said, gee, thanks. I mean, but landing is the hardest part. And most of the cadets washed out because they could not land the airplane. After primary, if you were successful in primary, you went over to the base. And the base, things changed. All the instructors were white. The people that ran the program were white in the Army. And they really changed. And as I said, I'm not going to talk about basic because I didn't think it was really important. I'm going to talk about advanced. Now, again, if you are a fighter pilot, you got to fight a plane, and what else do you need? Yeah, you had to learn how to shoot. That's what you had to be trained to know how to shoot. So we had aerial gunnery. It was we called it a sock, looked like it was about 20 feet long, and a person in an airplane, they had a cable to tow it. And his life almost was in jeopardy because if he might miss that sock and might put a bullet in his plane he's flying. But we, each cadet had a different color for the bullets he had. And if you hit that sock that they towed, then they could tell whether you hit it or not by the color that was in this sock. Also, we had ground gunnery. That is, you shot at targets on the ground. In advance, that was the first airplane that we flew that had, I should not say guns because I only had one. The first one that had a gun on it. And also had retractable landing gear. That is, when you take off now, as the airlines, you know, and whatnot, when they take off, you see the wheels coming up. Retractable landing gear. If you were successful in advance, then you were graduated with the rank of second lieutenant, and your designation is fighter pilot. My class, 43I, was the last class that was all fighter pilots. There was a bombardment group. After that, and half were fighters and half were bomber pilots. After you graduated, you went in what was known as transition. And this is the first actual fighter plane that flew, P-40. You've seen, I'm sure, on TV, the Flying Tigers, and they say it has some other names, and you notice part of the propeller is missing there. He got shot down. This airplane was tricky to land too. The landing gear, these little knots you see there, that's the landing gear retracted. It was close together, and it was difficult to land. We got about 10 hours in the P-40. Then the 332nd was formed, and we were stationed at Selfridge Army Air Base, which is near Mount Clemens, Michigan. The plane we flew there was a P-39. Those of you who are close up, maybe you can see the silver along here. That's the exhaust for the engine, which was behind the pilot. Now, the reason for this was it had a 37mm cannon that fired through the hub of the propeller. And they had to make room for the cannon in the front here, and so to put the engine behind the pilot. Now, this plane had, if you talk to your parents, and they, you know, the automobiles today have what's known as disc brakes, and to get in, it had a door just like an automobile. You open the door and get in, and you didn't have to climb up over the fuselage there to get in. Easy airplane to land, had tricycle landing gear, wide apart, but it had one fault. The engine was behind the pilot, and the engine, not all of them, of course, but I guess in the manufacturer, they had some fault with it, and it would throw a rod through the side of the engine, and it cut the controls, the elevator and the rudder, and you had no control over the airplane, and you would crash. In this plane, I was, again, you have to get some training in firing the cannon. And we did that in the shores of either Lake Huron or Lake St. Clair. I don't remember which one now because this is many years ago. And I had been up there firing the cannon, and I was coming back to the base, going along, nice and smooth and whatnot, about 5,000 feet. Engine quit. Yes, engine quit. Well, with a fighter plane, when the engine quit, it's going to come down right away. It's not going to wait like light planes. Light planes, you can glide a while and whatnot, and maybe find a good feeling in it, but not with the fighter plane. They're kind of heavy. When I was at Hampton and the instructor there, before we got in the airplane to get our instruction, he would say, airspeed, 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 airspeed. He talked about it so much we got tired of hearing it. Airspeed, airspeed, airspeed. Before we got in the airplane. Well, when I was coming back and the engine quit with this plane, what do you think I had? What do you think I did? I kept airspeed. And that's actually what saved me. I crashed a little town, Yale, Michigan. I don't know whether any of you heard of it or not. It's on your way to Flint from south, coming up I-75. And I crashed, and the whole population came out, about 100 people. And I had my goggles on. I had my my oxygen mask on. I had my parachute, and I had my flying jacket on and whatnot. And they asked me, were you flying that? I said, no. I said, you go look in there, it might be an elf in there that was flying it, and he's disappeared. Well, so they finally, I guess, realized that I was flying it, and I had the reporter for the local paper came in to interview me, so she was talking, asked me, said, oh, what did you do when you were growing up? I said, I went to school like all children do. And when I told them I had finished high school, and I told them I had my degree, they didn't believe it. And she asked me, did you pick cotton? I says, do they teach, geography and whatnot up here in the grand state of Michigan? I said, they don't grow cotton in Kentucky. They grow a lot of tobacco, but no cotton. And so that was my experience with the population, some of the population in Michigan. In 1943, the week of Christmas, the group went overseas. I did not go. I had to go to the hospital and get operation, which was necessary, as I found out. And I went later. 10 of us went later as replacements. And we went over in a converted cruise ship, not like the one that they towed into, what was it, Mobile? Unlike that one. It was fast, and the captain, we were told, would ram U-boats. And now the Germans were not dumb folks. They found out the route that this ship would go, so they got a mine, one of those circular mines, and just put a pipe up like a periscope. And along comes this captain with his ship, and he rams that. And of course, with that mine, it put a big hole in the ship. It didn't sink it, but it put a big hole in it, and they had to take it back to the shipyard to repair it. And Washington told this captain, said, now, you got away with this one, but no more ramming of the U-boats. We landed in Oran, and from there we joined the 332nd Fighter Group, and the first plane we flew over there was the P-39 with the 12th Air Force. And our job was to patrol over the battleships when they were going to go up to attack Rome. When they do beach landings, they have a term they call soften up the beach, so the your soldiers and whatnot can land on it. Now, what they mean by softening it up is they had a battleship to come in with 16-inch guns on them, about 9 of them, and you shoot those projectiles over there to kill the enemy, so your troops can land on the beach. I understand that each one of those projectiles came out, that was $10,000 as it went out. I'm talking about 1944, $10,000. They had 9 guns on it. Well, they declared Rome as an open city, so they did not capture it. And that was, frankly, that was a good move, because it would have been really criminal to have gone up there and tear up everything like the British did Berlin. The second plane we flew was the P-47 Thunderbolt. Those of you who are sitting up here, you see those things sticking up there. Those are .50 caliber machine guns. 8 of them. Has a radial engine, air-cooled. It weighed over 8 tons when he took off for its flight. Now, it was built for high altitude fighting. You see, the wings are big, but it would fight lower down. Now, some people ask me, which one of the planes that I flew did I like best? Well, it depends on what you want to do with it. Now, if in a fight, this was it, the P-47, 8 guns. You didn't even need to use your gun sight. If you got on the tail of a Messerschmitt or Focke 190, the Germans, and you start shooting, you were bound to hit him. The cone of fire was so great that you were bound to hit him. And radial engine. The P-51, the P-40, and the P-39 had liquid-cooled engine. If you hit the engine is going to stop, and you better hit the silk because it's not going to fly anymore. But with the radial engine, we had one of our members that the Germans hit one of the cylinders, knocked it out, and it still flew. Pratt & Whitney engine, about 2,000 horsepower. Well, it was not suitable for escort work, and we were transferred to the 15th Air Force, and that's when we got the P-51 Mustang. This had 6 machine guns on it. And it was suitable for escort work. We still had to use auxiliary tanks, had 2 of them, 110 gallons on each one of them on each wing. When you took off, you switched to your auxiliary tank because if you got in a fight, you're going to drop the tanks, which means that fuel is gone, and you have to rely on the internal. So if you forget to switch over and you got in a fight, you better hurry up and get back home because you're going to run out of fuel. This was a plane that was, if you saw Red Tails, this was P-51. It was a plane that they used in Red Tails. When I came back from overseas, I flew 63 missions altogether. I became an instructor in the B-25. By the way, there were 2 groups. 332nd was fighter group, and the bomber group was the 477th. They did not get into combat, but I was an instructor in the B-25. Now, why did I become an instructor in the B-25? If you notice, it has how many engines? 2. And it would fly on 1. Now, when I went on cross countries, I'd go up New York or Detroit or Chicago or whatnot, I didn't have to land before I got to the destination because it carried enough fuel, you didn't have to land. Landings is when a whole lot of accidents occur. The more landings you land, sooner or later you're going to have a mishap. So you could fly from Tuskegee, say, to Detroit and not have to land to get fuel. I was separated from the service in 1946. That was the last time I flew a plane, in 1946, and I joined the reserves. A little aside here. By the way, there were 5 boys in my family. We were all overseas in combat zone. 2 of us were in Europe and 3 were in the Pacific. All of us got back. And then when we went to, we would have family reunions though. My oldest brother and I stayed in reserves. The 3 others were on our case about if war breaks out, they're going to call you 2 guys back. I told them, I says, I got news for you. They'll call you back before they call me back because I was an officer and they weren't particular about finding jobs for black officers back in the 40s and whatnot. I also went down to my major in at college was education, secondary, not primary. So when I went down to apply, I did not get hired. I went then to the post office. I was there 10 years. And then I decided I would go down and see if I could get some substitute work. A friend of mine told me, says, you will not do substitute work not one day. They're going to hire you. I said, okay, but I got a job. I'm not worried about it. And she was right. They hired me. Now, why did they hire me? Well, if you, in your history and whatnot, Russia put a satellite up before the United States. Now, my major was mathematics and my minor was science. Then mathematics became important in the Detroit school system, and I got hired. I retired in 1984, and I retired from the Air Force in 1981. And when we had family reunions with our other brothers, we asked them, now who was dumb? I hear from the United States, no, I don't even hear from them anymore. They send it to my credit union. I don't even have to worry about getting it cashed. And so it worked out just fine. Now, this is the end of what I have to say. If you have any questions, I'm sure you have some questions. No, really, I'm not that good. Okay, yes. Do I have flashbacks? No. And people ask me, were you afraid? Actually, I wouldn't say it was afraid, but before you took your first flight into enemy territory, you just wonder about it. Actually, we had a P-51. I mean, it was comparable to the Messerschmitt and a Fokker 190. In other words, it was a good airplane, and I wouldn't worry about that. But you're just concerned about what you're going to run into. But after 2 or 3 missions, the hardest mission I went on was not aerial; it was ground, called strafing. In southern France, the Germans had their radar, and we were to go in and knock the radar stations out. And we lost several pilots on that mission. When you strafe, you down low. I mean, they call it on the deck. You're about 200 or 300 feet above the ground. And if you get hit, your chances of getting out are kind of slim. So no, I didn't have any flashbacks, but because actually in an airplane, now you may hit an airplane, and the pilot might get killed, but you're not there anymore. I mean, once you shot and hit him, you someplace else. I mean, you don't know what happened, but. That's the only time I fired my guns on that strafing mission, and it's a dangerous mission to go on. We have 2. No, don't even have 2 now. We have one that's alive. That was a prisoner of war that they were able to get out of the plane on that strafing mission, but they were really lucky. Yes. Oh yes, oh yes. When I was at Hampton, they needed more instructors down at Tuskegee, and the person that was running the program asked me would I be interested in becoming an instructor down at Tuskegee, and I was in my senior year at Hampton, and I told him, I said I came to Hampton to get a degree, and since they deferred me, I would get my degree. Now if you come after I get my degree. We can talk some more. But I wasn't going to go down and instruct. I wanted to fly fighters. I mean, I didn't want any training plane. I wanted to fly fighters. You know, when you're young, you know. Hmm? Yeah, right. Yeah, you wanna get in there with the planes. Huh? Yes. Fighting with me or against me? Now, which with you? Well, actually, we had 4 squadrons, but we had different. Well, we lived in tents, by the way, overseas, and we had our areas, but no, not too much camaraderie. I guess that's what you would call it. Well, within your squadron, but not the others. There were 4 squadrons: 99th, 100th, 301st, and 302nd. I was in 302nd. Yes. Oh no, oh no. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Well, I thought I answered that, but I guess I have to answer it again. No, I put it this way. No, I wasn't scared. You were just concerned about what you were going to encounter. And after about 3 missions, you didn't bother about it at all. Because we had, as I said, we finally got the P-51, and we got the latest model. And it was comparable to the Germans, what they had. I mean, it could run as fast as they did, sometimes faster. And so, wasn't concerned about it. Back here. You have to be louder. I don't. Yeah. How did it feel? How did it feel to fly in a fighter plane? I could say great, but I don't think they would get it. But actually, yeah, that's all I could say. It's great. As long as it was operating, I mean, you're okay. Yes. I mean, no. Even when I wasn't in combat when I crashed that P-39, I didn't even get injured in it. It was well, I could say it was to my way I did the crash because it was a house over here and there was 2 trees over here. I wasn't gonna hit the house, so I split the trees and sheared the wings off, and I walked away from it. Yes.
In Tuskegee, what is it like? The pilot try to mess you up so you crash in Tuskegee?
No. No. Yes.
Was people respectful?
In some cases, no, especially down south. Now, enlisted men are supposed to salute officers, but I didn't go too much to Montgomery and places like that. I just stayed on the base. But in Montgomery, I understand some went down there, and the whites did not salute the black officers, so that's not respecting them. Now overseas, if they didn't do it, they suffered the consequences, and they weren't too good. We made them salute. Yes. None. Not any. Oh.
You have a question right here?
I can't understand. I can't.
Why don't you stand up so they can hear you? There you go.
repeat your question.
Did you ever destroy a boat?
A boat?
A boat.
Did you ever destroy a boat?
I didn't, but there was a pilot in my squadron that did. It was a destroyer, and he shot it, destroyed it with just 50 caliber machine gun. But those battleships, even bombs won't necessarily destroy them. If you hit it in the right place and hit the magazine, it'll explode. But other than that, the battleship can withstand the bombs if they drop them. Yes.
Like the young man asked you about respect, how they can disrespect you, but even with you being African American and back in those times, what in you made you just say, you know, you went on and did what you did in spite of what the whole world was thinking?
Okay. I wanted to become a pilot, and I didn't care what they said and whatnot. I'm going to become a pilot. Now, what that mess is about is soon forgotten. I mean, I ignored it, really.
Right.
And Hap Arnold, bless his heart, I guess, but he's no longer with us, but I could have told him a few things. Well, okay, if no more questions, yes.
When they disrespected you, did it make you feel like you wish you never joined the Air Force?
No. As I tried to say, I knew what I wanted to do, and I was doing it. Now, have you heard, you know, what's the saying was, sticks and stones, my bones, but, yeah, right. Didn't pay attention to it. I grew up in the South. And you know, happy, in fact, in high school, I had some of the teachers that tried to belittle me. Well, I'm gonna tell you an incident. The teacher was a biology teacher. She was a good teacher. She put us through the mill, that's what I wanted, because I knew I was going to college. Well, we had 4 projects we had to do, dealt with insects, flowers, ferns, and whatnot. 4 of them, plus your tests and whatnot. And the first card marking I got my card and looked at it. I said, D. I said, now, wait a minute. So I went up after class and asked her, I'd like to speak to her. She says, what do you want? I said, I think you made a mistake. No, I ain't making a mistake. I said, okay, all right. Thank you. I went to see the principal and told him what happened. Well, he slid the move. I guess he thought that I was going to, when he said what he had to say, that I was through with it. He said he couldn't do anything about it. So I said, okay. And he told me, he said, you got to go see the superintendent. That was no problem either. Superintendent's office was right across the hall. I went over there and told him. His name was Miller. The other one's name was West. And so I told him. And see, my parents were paying tuition for me to go to school because I wasn't going to school in Ashland. I was going to school in Ironton, which is in Ohio, another state. Superintendent said he'd speak to her. Well, the next card market came out. I got the mark I wanted. She said, but I'm not going to change that first one. Well, that didn't matter because when I was in high school, it was the last mark you got that counted. And ironically, she taught chemistry too. She said, one day she said, Washington, that's what they call me. I'd like to see you at the class. I said, okay, Ms. Umford. She said they had sports teams, and then they had scholarship teams. And I was on the scholarship team. So she said, would you like to represent the school in chemistry? I said, Ms. Humphrey, I'm glad you asked me, but you're a little too late with your request, because I'm going to represent the school in Latin. I took 2 years of Latin. I'm going to represent the school in Latin. But she was the one that gave me that D. Okay. I'm going to preface this with with something. You know, the president can't change some things in the service. What would I change? Nothing I could change. But they let blacks take aviation crews now. Even the Navy. Now the Navy and the Marines, and if I'm stepping on some toes in here, so be it. The Navy, they would have sent me to San Quentin or wherever they send you. I wouldn't have been in the Navy because they treated the white ordinary seamen like dirt. In the Marine, no way. My youngest brother came home, told my mother, says he's gonna join the Marines. I said, no, he's not. I said, I'll kill him myself. I ain't gonna join the Marines. But things have changed now. You have the Marines and the Navy and whatnot. I think if you could talk to the president, he would tell you about changing things with Congress and whatnot. I mean, it's not easy. Yes.
Whenever somebody tried to discourage you, did that make you work harder?
Well, I didn't have anybody that tried to discourage me, but it wouldn't have mattered to me because I was going to do what I was going to do anyway. I mean, you don't listen to people. Don't let anybody tell you, if you want to do something, don't let anybody tell you can't do it. Don't let them tell you can't do it. Even some of your friends, if you want to do something, they gonna try to discourage you because they might be a little jealous of, you getting ahead and whatnot. I mean, and they can't do it. So they're gonna try to discourage you. No, nobody was gonna discourage me. The only thing, as I said, when I took that exam, become a cadet, if I didn't pass that exam, I didn't have any business in the program. Some things you want to do, you got to have preparation. You have to prepare for it. Now, I thought I could run track when I was in high school. I thought I was fast. Oh, yeah, I thought I was fast. And I went out for track, the 100-yard dash. It's meters now, it's not yards. And about 3 of those guys, they shot the gun. It was blanks in it. And those guys were halfway down the course, and I'm still back there trying to get out of the block. I said, well, track is not for me. but the thing is, don't tell me that I can't do something if you don't give me the opportunity. See, now if you don't give me the opportunity, yeah, but don't tell me I can't do it, and you haven't even given me the opportunity. So no, I was just fortunate, and it's sad too, that it took a war for me to become a pilot.
All right, we're going to take maybe one more question.
Yes. What inspired me to be a pilot? I didn't elaborate on the first time I went up in an airplane, but the first time I went up in an airplane, and it was probably in the 30s, was in a Ford tri-motor, 3-engine on it, all metal. And my youngest brother and my sister, the 3 of us, went up in it. These pilots were barnstorm. They go from town to town and give plane rides. The fare was $0.01 a pound. I was a little chubby when I was growing up. And I think mine, I had to get about 90 pennies. And we went up, and they gave us an aerial view of the great city of Ashland, Kentucky. Took about 5 minutes. Took off and went around and landed. And I told them, I mean, being in the air, you have to do it to know what it's like. You up there, especially down south, that's the reason the train down south, because it have good weather. I mean, clouds, you can fly through the clouds and do loops, rolls and all that stuff. It's just fun.
Well, thank you for your attention, and thank you, Lieutenant Colonel